For 3 years, I had been visiting my brother's grave every week, until I received an Instagram message from him at midnight saying, "We need to talk, Maya." When I investigated his accounts, I discovered the shocking truth. My brother had never died, and he had been lying to our family for 3 horrific years. Maya Richardson had always been incredibly close to her younger brother Jake, and their bond was the kind that made other siblings jealous. At 26, Maya worked as a marketing coordinator for a tech company in Seattle, while 24-year-old Jake was finishing his degree in computer science at the University of Washington. They talked every day, shared everything, and had never kept secrets from each other. Jake was what you might call a social media influencer before the term became mainstream, with thousands of followers across Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. He documented everything: his morning coffee, gym sessions, weekend adventures, and late-night gaming streams. Maya used to tease him about being glued to his phone, but she secretly admired how he could capture life's moments and make even mundane activities seem exciting to his audience. Their parents, Linda and Robert Richardson, had always worried about Jake's online presence, concerned that he shared too much personal information with strangers. Maya remembered countless family dinners where their father would lecture Jake about privacy and safety, warning him that his constant posting could attract the wrong kind of attention. Jake would always laugh it off, insisting that social media was just harmless fun and a way to connect with people who shared his interests. What none of them realized was that Jake's extensive online presence would become the key to exposing the most devastating family secret imaginable. But here's where the story takes its first shocking turn, the night that would change the Richardson family forever. The Richardson family had always seemed like the perfect American family, with 2 successful parents and 2 bright, ambitious children who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Linda worked as a nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital, while Robert was a senior engineer at Boeing. They lived in a beautiful suburban home in Bellevue, complete with a well-maintained garden and a 2-car garage that Robert used as his workshop on weekends. Jake had always been the more adventurous of the 2 siblings, constantly planning hiking trips, road trips, and outdoor adventures that he would meticulously document for his social media followers. His content ranged from fitness tips and healthy recipes to travel vlogs and technology reviews. Maya often appeared in his posts as the supportive older sister, and their followers loved their sibling dynamic and genuine affection for each other. But Jake had been acting somewhat differently in the months leading up to the accident, becoming more secretive about certain aspects of his life and occasionally mentioning mysterious projects that he couldn't discuss yet. Maya had noticed that he seemed anxious about something and had been asking unusual questions about family finances, inheritance laws, and life insurance policies. When she asked him about it, Jake would deflect with jokes or change the subject entirely. What Maya didn't know was that Jake had been investigating something that would eventually force him to make the most difficult decision of his life. But what Jake discovered in those final weeks would put his entire family in danger. On December 15th, 3 years ago, Jake had called Maya around 8 p.m. to tell her he was driving to Portland to visit a college friend and would be back by Sunday. The weather forecast predicted a severe winter storm, and Maya had begged him to postpone the trip, but Jake insisted it was important and couldn't wait. That was the last conversation Maya would have with her brother, or so she thought. The phone call came at 2:30 a.m. from the Oregon State Police, informing the family that Jake's car had been found at the bottom of a ravine off Highway 26, completely destroyed by fire. The officer explained that icy road conditions had likely caused Jake to lose control of his vehicle, which had crashed through a guardrail and fallen nearly 200 feet before catching fire. By the time emergency responders reached the scene, the car was nothing but twisted metal and ash. What happened next would haunt the Richardson family for years to come. But what the police didn't know was that this accident was far more suspicious than anyone could have imagined. The identification process was devastating for the Richardson family, as Jake's body had been so severely burned that traditional identification methods were impossible. The medical examiner explained that the intense heat from the fire had destroyed dental records possibilities, and DNA testing would be extremely difficult due to the condition of the remains. However, Jake's wallet, watch, and college ring had been found in the wreckage, and the license plate confirmed it was his car. But this was only the beginning of a mystery that would consume Maya's life for the next 3 years. Maya's first instinct after the funeral was to deal with Jake's extensive digital presence, as his social media accounts continued to receive comments and messages from followers who didn't know about his death. She contacted Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and other platforms to request that Jake's accounts be memorialized or deleted. But each company required specific documentation and had different policies for handling deceased users' accounts. But here's where the story takes its first disturbing turn. Maya realized she didn't have access to any of Jake's passwords or login information. Despite being incredibly close, Jake had never shared his social media passwords with anyone, and Maya couldn't access his phone because it had been destroyed in the crash. She tried guessing passwords based on important dates, pet names, and inside jokes, but nothing worked. The social media companies suggested she could provide death certificates and legal documentation to have the accounts memorialized, but the process would take months. While Maya struggled with the bureaucracy of digital death, something strange began happening that she initially dismissed as algorithmic coincidence. Here's where Maya's world started falling apart in ways she never could have expected. Jake's Instagram account began showing activity that seemed impossible, given that he was dead and his phone had been destroyed. Maya first noticed it about 2 weeks after the funeral when she received a notification that Jake had liked one of her posts. She assumed it was some kind of technical glitch or delayed reaction from before his death, but then she started noticing more activity. Here's where Maya's investigation would reveal the first shocking clue that everything she believed about Jake's death was wrong. Maya began obsessively monitoring Jake's social media accounts, taking screenshots of every piece of activity and keeping detailed logs of when things happened. She noticed that his Instagram account was not only liking posts, but also following new accounts, unfollowing others, and even posting new stories. The stories were always simple: sunset photos, food pictures, or generic motivational quotes, but they were definitely new content that hadn't existed before his death. But what Maya discovered when she started analyzing the posting patterns would make her question everything she thought she knew about her brother's fate. Maya's background in marketing had taught her how to analyze social media metrics and user behavior patterns, and she began applying these skills to Jake's posthumous activity. She noticed that the posts were happening at specific times, usually late at night or early in the morning, and always from locations that were geographically consistent with someone traveling up and down the West Coast. The breakthrough came when Maya realized that Jake's Instagram stories included location tags that placed him in cities where he had never been during his lifetime. Maya saw posts tagged from Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, all places that Jake had talked about visiting but had never actually been to, according to his previous social media history. More disturbing was that some of these location tags corresponded to dates and times when Maya could verify Jake's physical location through family photos and witnesses, proving that someone else was controlling his accounts. That's when Maya made the decision that would expose the truth about what really happened to her brother on that snowy night 3 years ago. But what Maya discovered when she decided to confront whoever was controlling Jake's accounts would shatter everything she believed about her family. Maya's investigation had reached a point where she could no longer deny that someone was actively managing Jake's social media accounts, and that person had intimate knowledge of his life, interests, and posting style. The content being shared was too authentic and personal to be the work of a random hacker or bot. Whoever was controlling Jake's accounts knew him well enough to maintain his online persona convincingly. What Maya was about to discover about who was behind Jake's digital resurrection would shatter every assumption she had made about her brother's death. Maya decided to take a direct approach and sent a message to Jake's Instagram account, not expecting any response but hoping to provoke some kind of reaction from whoever was controlling it. She wrote a simple message. "I know you're not Jake. Who are you, and what do you want?" To her amazement, the response came within hours, and it was more shocking than anything she could have imagined. But here's where Maya received the message that would change everything she believed about her family and her brother's fate. The message that appeared in Maya's Instagram direct messages was written in Jake's distinctive voice and included details that only her real brother could have known. It referenced inside jokes from their childhood, mentioned specific conversations they had shared in the weeks before his supposed death, and included personal information that had never been posted on social media or shared with anyone outside their immediate family. Jake's message read, "Maya, it's really me. I know this is impossible to believe, but I'm alive, and I've been hiding for 3 years. I can't explain everything in a message, but I discovered something about our family that forced me to disappear. I'm sorry for putting you through this, but I had to wait until it was safe to contact you. We need to meet." Maya stared at her phone screen for what felt like hours, her mind racing between disbelief, hope, and terror about what this revelation might mean. But what convinced Maya that this message was really from her brother would expose a family secret that had been hidden for over 15 years. Maya's immediate reaction was to assume this was some kind of cruel hoax or scam, but the message included specific details that only Jake could have known. The sender knew about Maya's childhood fear of thunderstorms, mentioned their secret code word from when they were kids, and referenced a conversation they had about their parents' marriage problems that they had sworn never to tell anyone about. But what convinced Maya that this was really her brother was a detail that made her blood run cold. The message included information about a family secret that Jake had discovered shortly before his supposed death, a secret that Maya didn't even know existed. Jake's message continued with chilling details. "I found out about the insurance money, Maya. I know what Dad did to Uncle Tom, and I know why Mom has been lying to us our whole lives. I had to disappear because they were going to kill me to keep it quiet." Maya felt her world tilting as she realized that her brother's death had been staged, and that her own parents might be involved in something far more sinister than she had ever imagined. That's when Maya made the decision to meet with the person claiming to be her brother, even though she knew it could be dangerous. But what Jake would reveal about their parents during that meeting would expose crimes that had been hidden for decades. The meeting that Maya arranged with the person claiming to be Jake would expose a family conspiracy that had been hidden for decades and destroy everything she thought she knew about her parents. Maya chose a public location, a busy coffee shop in downtown Seattle, and arrived early to scout for any signs of danger or deception. She had prepared herself for disappointment, hoping for a miracle but expecting to confront a cruel imposter. When Jake walked into the coffee shop, Maya immediately knew it was really her brother, despite the significant changes in his appearance. Jake had lost weight, grown a beard, and dyed his hair dark brown, but his eyes and smile were unmistakable. The moment they embraced, Maya felt 3 years of grief and confusion dissolve into a mixture of relief and anger. Her brother was alive, but that meant he had allowed his family to suffer through his funeral, their mourning, and years of devastating loss while he lived in hiding. But what Jake told Maya during their reunion would justify his desperate decision to fake his own death. Here's where the Richardson family's perfect facade would completely crumble. Jake explained that in the months before his supposed death, he had been investigating irregularities in their family's finances after noticing suspicious conversations between their parents. Using his computer science skills, Jake had hacked into their father's email and discovered evidence that would change everything they thought they knew about their family. What Jake found in those emails about their father's activities was far more disturbing than simple financial fraud. Jake revealed that their Uncle Tom hadn't died in an accident as their parents had claimed, But the truth about what really happened to Tom was something Maya wasn't prepared to hear. What their father had done to Uncle Tom 15 years earlier would explain everything about why Jake had been forced to disappear. But the method Robert had used to silence Uncle Tom forever was something that Maya never could have imagined her own father capable of. And when Uncle Tom had discovered what Robert was really doing at Boeing, Robert had made a decision that would haunt their family for decades. What happened next between Robert and Uncle Tom was far worse than an accident, and Maya's mother Linda had played a role in covering up what Robert had done that was more shocking than Maya could process. For 15 years, the Richardson family had been living off money that came from the most unthinkable source, while Maya and Jake remained completely unaware of how their comfortable life had really been funded. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. What Jake discovered about his parents' plan for him would explain why he had been forced to choose between breaking Maya's heart and saving his own life. Jake told Maya that their parents had discovered his investigation and had been planning something for him that was eerily similar to what had happened to Uncle Tom. The location Robert had suggested for their next family trip was the same remote area where Uncle Tom had met his fate 15 years earlier. And when Jake had overheard their parents discussing how to handle their Jake problem, he realized that history was about to repeat itself in the most terrifying way possible. That's when Jake understood that he had only one option to save his own life, even if it meant destroying Maya's world in the process. That's when Jake understood that he had only one option to save his own life, even if it meant destroying Maya's world in the process. How Jake managed to escape his parents' deadly plan and make them believe he was dead would prove that he had inherited more than just his father's intelligence. But Jake's 3 years in hiding had been about more than just survival. He had been working on something that would finally bring justice for Uncle Tom and ensure his parents could never hurt anyone else again. What Jake had accomplished during his time in hiding would not only expose his parents' crimes, but also reveal the true scope of their criminal activities that went far beyond what Maya had imagined. The evidence Jake had gathered was so comprehensive and damaging that it would ensure Robert and Linda faced consequences they had avoided for 15 years. The FBI investigation that followed Jake's evidence led to the arrest of Robert and Linda Richardson on charges including murder, conspiracy, embezzlement, insurance fraud, and money laundering. The case made national headlines when it was revealed that a young man had been forced to fake his own death to escape his murderous parents, and that he had spent 3 years gathering evidence to ensure they faced justice for their crimes. Robert was convicted of first-degree murder in Uncle Tom's death and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additional charges related to his corporate espionage and financial crimes added several more decades to his sentence. Linda received a 25-year sentence for her role in the cover-up and conspiracy, despite her attorney's attempts to portray her as a victim of Robert's manipulation. But the most meaningful part of the justice process was the exhumation and proper burial of Uncle Tom, whose death could finally be acknowledged as the murder it had always been. Uncle Tom's children, who had spent 15 years believing their father had died in a tragic accident, were finally able to get answers about what really happened to him. Jake's evidence had not only exposed his parents' crimes, but had also provided closure for another family that had been devastated by Robert's murderous greed. The revelation that Jake was alive brought immense relief to Maya, but it also created complicated feelings about the 3 years of unnecessary grief she had endured. Maya struggled with anger toward Jake for allowing her to suffer through his fake death, but she ultimately understood that he had made an impossible choice between breaking her heart temporarily and risking his own murder. The siblings worked through their complex emotions with the help of professional counseling, and their relationship gradually healed as they processed the trauma they had both experienced. Jake's social media accounts became a crucial piece of evidence in the federal case, as investigators used his posting patterns and location data to verify his timeline and support his testimony. The accounts that had once seemed like evidence of supernatural activity became proof of a young man's desperate attempt to stay connected to his old life while building a case against his dangerous parents. 3 years after his supposed death, Jake legally reclaimed his identity and began rebuilding his life with Maya's support. Jake completed his computer science degree through online courses and now works as a cybersecurity consultant, using his skills to help law enforcement agencies investigate digital crimes. His experience living under a false identity gave him unique insights into online security and privacy that have made him valuable to both corporate clients and government agencies. Maya left her marketing job to become a victims' rights advocate, specializing in cases involving family members who have been betrayed by people they trusted. She frequently speaks at conferences about her experience and helps other families navigate the complex emotions that arise when they discover that their loved ones are not who they seemed to be. The Richardson siblings chose to change their last name and distance themselves from their parents' legacy of violence and deception. They created new family traditions and built relationships based on honesty and trust, proving that it's possible to overcome even the most devastating family betrayals when people choose truth over lies. Robert and Linda remain in federal prison, where they continue to maintain their innocence despite overwhelming evidence of their crimes. They have shown no remorse for Uncle Tom's murder, or for the psychological damage they inflicted on their children by forcing Jake to fake his death, and Maya to mourn a brother who was still alive. But their children have moved far beyond the trauma of their crimes to build authentic lives based on justice, truth, and genuine family bonds. Jake often reflects on how his decision to maintain his social media presence during his 3 years in hiding ultimately provided the digital breadcrumbs that allowed him to reconnect with Maya safely. The accounts that had seemed like ghostly activity from beyond the grave were actually a desperate brother's way of staying connected to his old life while building a case that would bring his parents' murderers to justice. The Instagram message that had initially terrified Maya became the beginning of their family's healing and the end of decades of deadly secrets. Sometimes the most frightening discoveries lead to the most important revelations, and the Richardson siblings learned that facing the truth about their parents' crimes was the only way to build the authentic relationship they deserved. Maya and Jake continue to support each other while also helping other families who have been affected by similar betrayals, proving that family bonds can survive even the most devastating deceptions when they are rebuilt on foundations of honesty and choice rather than blood and obligation. Sometimes the people we trust most are hiding the darkest secrets. My brother's death saved his life and exposed a family conspiracy that had been hidden for decades. Social media doesn't lie, but families do. What would you do if you received a message from a family member who had been dead for years? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for daily, shocking family drama stories like this one. Smash that like button if this incredible story amazed you. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Comment your thoughts and share your own family mystery experiences. We upload a brand new jaw-dropping real-life story every single day. Don't miss tomorrow's shocking tale that will leave you speechless. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next incredible story.